we can make sure if anybody's not on the webinar this morning, we can get it sent over to them later on who's previously booked. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this award writing webinar. Really delighted to be working with the team at National World again to present this on behalf of the Apprenticeship Awards programme that they're running, of which we can see many icons up there and different regions and things. So hopefully this will be of real value to you. Even if you've got some experience of writing business awards, then this should give you perhaps some different techniques and perhaps something that that you can implement from now on that will help you in that preparation planning stage, as well as the actual execution of the award entry in itself. So my name's Lucinda, and I'm trying to get the tabs to work. There we go. And my name's Lucinda, and the company is Pure Awards. This is a little picture of myself and my teammate Jenna, who heads up the content side of the company. But we predominantly write business award entries for companies all over the country in all different types of sectors and for all different types of awards, whether that's local, regional, national, industry specific, or things like the King's Award for Enterprise as well. So we do quite a lot of these in-person webinar presentations, as well as the webinars and masterclasses like this as well. So there's a lot of information that I've kind of honed down into a 40-minute action plan here today for us. But hopefully this gives you a bit of an understanding of, kind of what the backbone of producing a good, well-rounded, well-constructed entry for you. So background on us is like I say, we do the award writing. That's probably about 70% of the business. We also do fundraising and grant writing for charities mainly and CICs. We create award planners, which are strategic plans for companies who kind of have an idea of what they want to go for, but would really like to see what the market is and see what the opportunities are. So we do that for our clients, and then from that create a bit more of a strategic plan based on their achievements for the last 12 months, but also where they want to be able to use that award win going forward, whether it's recruitment or kind of shouting about new locations and that side of things. We do a check and send service, so anybody who is writing your own entries like you guys, but would benefit from perhaps a professional edit review of it just before it goes to be submitted to the judges, then we're more than happy to do that. That's a paid service, and we have an online portal for that as well. And yeah, we are looking at doing some award mastermind groups and also launching some more online courses and things in the future. So yeah, and I say we do the content writing as well, blogs, newsletters, that sort of thing. So it's all about the writing, but we shall crack on with today anyway. Okay, so why should you enter business awards? So if you've got anybody in the company who's thinking, I'm not really sure if it's really worth the time, the effort, the energy and the money, then there are some real benefits to entering business awards. And if you're new to it, then this is definitely something that you can take away as a positive use of your time. So some of the reasons why that you will benefit from entering, and of course being shortlisted is just as fantastic. To get down to that shortlist of 3 or 5 on that list is an amazing achievement in itself. To then go on to win, it's incredible. But don't kind of discount the fact that being shortlisted is a really, really strong place to be, just as much as winning. So it's going to give you an opportunity to really enhance your reputation and your company profile. It elevates that, makes sure that people who are around you are really motivated and they're really engaged with you as a company, and you kind of given them you've rewarded them for everything that they've done so far, and celebrating the fact that as a company you've achieved something really strong together as a team, and that you can move that use that going forward to really be more productive. It delivers that benchmark of excellence, so you kind of putting yourself out there for others to see how well you're doing, which is great. Don't be fall down on straight after winning and just go, oh yeah, we can just sit back and not do anything now. That's actually when you have to work a bit harder to retain and maintain that level and be up there at the top. It gives you that industry recognition, and then that also leads to other opportunities as well. So you may be invited to be a guest speaker, you may be invited to write a column for the newspaper or the publication, based on your expertise. And because you've put your profile out there in front of those judges, in front of those organizations, publications, magazines, etc., then you will be then recognized as an individual who is an expert in that field. So they will more likely want to come to you for responses to things going on in the news, feedback, that sort of thing. The whole process of writing the award in itself is actually a really good opportunity to really review and analyse quite deeply where you are as a business and what you've achieved over the last 12 months. And just that process in itself is massively valuable, because it will help you identify the areas where you have succeeded, which we're so busy doing the do and in the business that sometimes actually taking that time out to find the figures, get the evidence, and really understand, where do those surveys to your customers that you might have been saying, I need to do that, and haven't done. Well, for the award entry, you will need to do it. So it's important that you put that time in, but that in itself is a massive benefit as well, because you'll see the feedback from your customers, and that will allow you to do more of it, to do something slightly different, change some of the internal processes, or perhaps do something that's going to strengthen your business for the future as well. So it's really, really valuable exercise, even if you don't get to a shortlist or a win situation. So just the whole process of it from start to finish. As I said earlier, there's loads of PR opportunities with this. Obviously, through the social channels and everything, you can get lots and lots of coverage there. But also through the papers, like for these apprenticeship awards, obviously they'll be covered in newspapers, so you'll get loads of opportunities to reshare that out digitally, and also taking the clippings and things and celebrating that within the team in the office. All of these actions above are positive actions to help you in your business, to enable you to have another marketing strand in your business, and will give you much more productivity and progress going forward, because you're implementing something really positive there, and the response from that should be a positive. You should get something valuable from that, from a positive side, so that you can really then develop that and kind of harness that, I suppose, and sort of use that really to help your team be more productive and to really kind of engage with the business and move it forward. And of course, there will be some financial returns as well. We are in business where even if you're a charity, you still need to make some money to deliver more projects for your beneficiaries. So, from a business perspective, we do things to make money. And a small business could potentially, I would say it's more really, but certainly a study was done around 10 or 12 years ago, which tracked 120 companies, and it showed that those 120 companies increased their turnover by at least 39% in the year after winning the award. Now that can be factored into all of these things. So more PR, more productivity, more progress, more motivation, all of those things will have enabled that to happen. And the fact is that people like to buy from award-winning businesses. There is some evidence there to say that 80% of buying decisions will be made about going with an award-winning business over a non-award-winning business. So from that side of things, there is real value in going through this. So for today, I'm not going to go into each one of these in terms of the deadline dates and things like that. You've got them up there on the screen. You can see the most pressing ones, obviously the ones in March, which is why we've held this earlier on compared to perhaps the Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, which is at the end of July. But for the ones coming up, let's be really focused on those from a timing perspective, and goes forward with everything. But you can see that the mechanism of the whole event in itself will be structured very similarly across the board. The entry system, the login system, all is reflective of each other. So once you've gone into one, you pretty much know what they all look like. So in terms of the apprenticeship in itself, then when you're kind of looking at what are the key things, why is it, why should we even go for this? How do we even know that this is the right ones for us to go for? Obviously, if you've got apprentices, that's the first tick box, because you can't apply if you don't. So ideally, you're going to have at least one apprentice who's at a certain level, and we'll go through the categories very shortly. but really they want to be shining out in different ways and showing their strength in the different areas that they're doing in the company. So, you know, have they improved on their communication skills? You know, what's their practical element of what they do, and how has that improved and developed and grown over the period of time that you've been working with them? You know, it's good to create the sort of before and after with the apprentice. So kind of what were they like when they first joined? How is it that you've helped to nurture and support and develop them? And also working with a training provider to make sure that they've got the right skills in place as well, and the knowledge base within the business. You know, how has that grown and developed and changed them in effect into a really, really valuable member of your team now, who's really contributory, you know, and can bring fantastic ideas and do lots of great things for the business, and, you know, really hardworking, you know, and has that determination to succeed. So, you know, all these good qualities, as we would expect, we really want to be able to show those within the entry and make sure that you're pulling out all of these as relevant to what's required. Equally, as an employer, you know, you want to be able to show that you are dedicated to that individual, that you've got a real, you know, kind of strong program internally within the business. I think, is it Peter? Could you put yourself on mute, please, Peter? I've got a bit of background noise going on. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, so from an employer's perspective, obviously you want to be able to shine through and show how you are really supporting and nurturing those individuals, that, you know, you've got quite a unique plan in place and how that you're developing them, and then back that up with testimonials from the training provider and from perhaps even the apprentice themselves. If they've been to a different employer, then come to you, then you can show that they didn't get that support from that employer, they did get it from you, and this is the result, and this is how they've been able to succeed in that apprenticeship. So before you do anything, really, the first thing is making some time. Now, it's the hardest thing because we've all got extremely busy lives, and I can't actually believe that we're on the 1st of March already. It just seems crazy that 2 months has already gone by. But really, it'd be great to move the deadline. And that's just for your purposes. That just gives you that week of a buffer zone. So if it's, say, the 21st of March, then bring it back to the 14th of March, if you can, in your diary, and put time now aside in your diary to make sure that you are covering everything that you need to make that entry work. That will be some thinking time. It will be about gathering the evidence and making sure that it's really right for the entry itself. Obviously, the writing of it, sometimes you can have a bit of mind block situation, you know, and I would say in terms of AI, yes, okay, you can use it, don't rely on it, and never ever use it as the final solution. So that's my advice with AI. So if you have got a bit of a mind block and you're not quite sure how to respond to that particular answer, then just put the prompt in, put a well constructed prompt into AI, ask that question, see what it churns out, and then really just take nuggets out just to give you that starting block. Just gives you an opportunity to get some words down on the paper that you can then create and make to your own. I would never say just lift it straight off there and go, yeah, that's the response, because not only you can tell, you know, but it's not good practice as well. It needs to be from you. We need to read and hear that passion in those words. So that needs to be very much your language, how you portray yourself as well. So be very mindful of that, but don't be afraid of using AI. Just don't use it as the solution. It's a tool. And then obviously you need to allow time for proofreading the submission and amending it accordingly. So you can use that buffer zone of that last week to make that happen, or you can include it all into there and be a week early with your entry deadline in itself. But ideally, you know, it's important to try and make as much time as you possibly can. There is supporting material that you can add to this as well, so be aware of that. So you might want to use some software like Canva or something like that, where you can create something quite professional looking. But again, you know, that takes time, so you need to factor that in as well, or delegate. So some time management tools that you can obviously use for this, but also for other activities as well. The planning, the 10 to 1 rule. So for that, you know, obviously for an hour of time that you're putting into the preparation side of things, you're going to get 10 hours back, hopefully, in the future across that period of maybe a year, however long. But the time that you're putting into this award entry will help you going forward with other award entries of a similar style, but also in terms of things that you're doing from a copy perspective. You can repurpose it out, perhaps onto some of your social platforms, into your newsletters, onto the website as well. So it will give you a lot of time, like kind of a lot of words there to be able, and copy to be able to use on other platforms. Avoidance behavior. So we've all done the, I'm just going to make a coffee, send this email, do this phone call, and then I'm going to sit down and write this award entry. You know, we all try and push those things to one side and think it is important, but I've got to do this first and I've got to do that first, but I know this is important. You know, we really need to try and stop that sort of behavior, and just try and kind of go, yeah, I'm just going to do it now because this is what's happening. That's on my list. And this is what I need to do right now because this is where it's important. When you do your award entry, if you apply something called the single handling technique, it will help you be much more productive at the period of time that you're actually writing. So if you've got all your evidence there, you've got an idea of exactly what you want, you're basically locking yourself in a room, no Wi-Fi, phones off, perhaps in another room anyway, to avoid any distractions. You're totally focused on that. And I think your productivity will improve by about 30%. So if you are restricted with time, then that's a really good way of being able to really focus your energy. And it may be that you decide you're just going to do the first 2 parts of the question, get those done, get those to an absolute finished place, and then have a stop and have a break. But give yourself mini goals within that as well. But it's a really valuable and useful way of managing time. And then the final one is eat that frog. So if anybody knows of Brian Tracy, he's kind of the time management guru, and certainly somebody who, you know, I would recommend reading his books and things. But you can imagine that the award entry is there sitting on your desk as a really disgusting, slimy, big frog. And the longer you leave it, the more slimy, the more disgusting it gets, you know, until you actually eat that frog. And the concept is basically you do all the jobs that you don't want to do early on in the day, get them out of the way, and then you can focus on the things that you do want to do and the things that are then going to push your business forward. So these are the, you know, this can be seen, award writing can be seen as a bit of a frog. Not for us, we love it, but for other people, it can be a bit of a frog. So I would recommend, if you're struggling with it, to, you know, eat that frog as early as you possibly can at your most productive time, and then you'll feel a lot better through the day. Try not to leave it to the last minute. Do as I say, not as I do. All I'm saying on that one. Okay, so when you're looking at the categories, it's really, it can be quite challenging. You're thinking, I think for these ones, perhaps less so, mainly because you've got there are very specific categories for different types of businesses and sectors. But certainly from the right person, that might be more of the challenge, because you may have apprentices who, you know, within the team, you want to put them all forward for it, but it's about who do you pick to go for that one particular award. So where I would start, and this applies to the business side of things as well, as to which category to go for, particularly with these, but also with any other kind of standard business categories as well. Look at the last 12 months of the business and write down that person's top achievements and success stories in that time. Now, you can do that as a compare and contrast then amongst the team of the apprentices that you have, and you're not sure which to put forward. You know, kind of who they are, where were they when they first started, what's their growth been, what are they doing, why is it that they're so impressive at the moment, you know, how long has it taken them to get there? Has it been in, you know, in the first 6 months, or has it been a longer time for them to get where they need to be? You know, and what have they been doing outside of the business that's really helped them develop themselves as well? So we really need to look at that journey and what that looks like, and prepare that timeline of events going forward, so that they can really understand, you know, exactly kind of where they started and where they are now, because that's really the crux of the storyline. How have their successes enabled you as a business to be able to achieve more? So, you know, have they implemented some new ideas? Have they been really helpful in terms of time efficiency and cost savings? Have they had new ideas about different processes and things, which has enabled you to grow as a business in other areas? You know, what is the impact of that individual had on the business? Because that's important to understand that. And then be really clear about what makes them different from the other apprentices, and think about what their USP as an individual is. That might be a bit of their backstory, where they've come from, their home life. Has it been challenging, difficult? You know, have they had to overcome some learning difficulties and challenges and that sort of thing? You know, what is their story? So ultimately start there and start documenting that down first. And then that will give you some content there that you can start using in the entry itself. So there's quite a few categories. Like I say, a lot of them specified to that particular apprentice, but you've got obviously the business ones as well. So I know that, you know, things like Mentor of the Year is a fantastic one, because it can be the business, you know, a member of the team in the business, or it can be another apprentice developing and helping other apprentices on the team. So the entry form itself, go through the entry portal as normal. If anybody's not done that, then please go onto the websites and, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. To be fair, you can nominate, then it will click you through. If you haven't set up a login already, you'll be asked to do that. Once you've verified your email address, once you've got it in, then you'll be able to see what's there. So the slight changes from last year to this year, in that we just have one block of text to answer the criteria points, which are all on the website. And a brief introduction, and it's a character-based one. So worked it out, 7,000 characters is just over 1,000 words. So that's go for about 1,000, and that's what you've got to play with, really. If you go a little bit over, you won't be penalised for it, because it will allow for that extra. But really, you know, that's what you've got as space, which is great, because it'll give you a chance to really start explaining things in a bit more detail. So previously it was 300 words for a particular criteria point, you know, and I suppose the flow of the story was less able to be achieved. But this time, you know, with that just one kind of piece, it's much easier to put that together. Supporting material, up to 3 pages of A4. Like I say, we'll cover that a little bit later, and you can see where you upload that onto the system as well. Definitely worth doing. It's not an opportunity to just add more words. It's an opportunity to bring the entry to life. So that's visual stuff, image testimonials, that kind of thing, but definitely not a load of opportunity to do more words. So this is what that kind of login system looks like, and what the entry requirement looks like now. So it really is, you know, really simple. So you've got your main contact details above that, then you've got the submit buttons and everything at the bottom. So it's dead easy to look at and work through. And I would always recommend you put it onto a Word document first, and then copy and paste it in. Okay, so some top tips for preparing the submission. You could do first or third person. Decide which one you want to do. I would say first person is probably better when you're talking about you as the business. Obviously, if you're talking about an apprentice, then it's third person, because you're talking about them. But whichever one you're doing, make sure you stick to it, because there's, you know, sometimes it can be slightly changing through the entry and things, and that can be a little bit confusing. So just make sure that you've got one and you stick with it. Try to begin with a really strong evidence-based statement that will help to capture the judge's attention. You know, whether that's to do with time period of growth and what they've done, and, you know, or whatever. But look at what the evidence is, look at what your information is and your content, and just pull out a really strong statement that's going to capture that attention. Obviously, we've got 1,000 words, and I will kind of contradict myself in some respects, because I want you to explain as fully as you can the criteria points, but we also need to be mindful of the word count, and we also need to make sure that we're not rambling on too much as well. So we kind of have to be concise and succinct in what we say, but also explain as fully as we can. So there are a few little things that we can do to make sure that that happens, and to make sure that you're saying everything, but really controlling your word count as well. So we'll go over that in a minute. when you're doing your submission, obviously you can pull out your key evidence pieces as well to back up the claims. So there might be, you might think, oh, I need a testimonial there to back that up, or I need some more information there from, like, I need to know how they were responsible for your social media. We need to have the information about all your followers and how that's grown over the last 12 months that they've been involved with it, etc. So it's like getting that detail and that data from the systems that you've already got in place and trying to pull out and making sure that you're showing that in the best way possible. Final one is telling your story, like I say, in as much detail as possible. Making sure that you've got that bio, giving that picture of who they were before they came to join the apprenticeship scheme, and who they've become as a result of it. So in terms of, this is what the criteria is for the SME Employer of the Year, which I thought I'd just pull this one out, and I've also pulled out one for an apprentice as well, a bit later on. And you can see how, these are the key criteria points here. So on this occasion, we've got 6, but we actually also have got 7, because we've got to give an overview of the programme itself, the number of apprentices you have, the training pathway they receive as being part of the organisation. So actually there's 7 things that you need to include into your entry on this one. And I would make sure when you're starting to construct each one that you just use them as bullet point titles, subtitles, in effect, underneath, so that you can respond to each of those points and make sure you're really answering that question before you move on to the next. And then once you've done that copy, then you can start condensing perhaps the titles into shorter titles that are still relevant, just so that you're lifting it off the page for the judges and making sure that it's not just this one big block of 1,000 words that they have to read through just paragraph after paragraph, that it actually comes off the page a little bit, and make sure that you are really showing the judges that you are answering every part of the question as well. So that's quite important to make sure that you're detailed in that. So you can break down, like I say here, you can break down the number of words into the specific criteria points. So, obviously we've got 7 there. If you do 1,000 divided by 7, that's how many words you've got for each section. So use that as your starting block, really, because then that'll make sure that you've got enough space to answer everything. And it means that you won't be missing out on anything. Because if it comes down to you and another company and you haven't answered one of those questions, then ultimately the other company's potentially going to go ahead above you. So, you need to make sure that you're doing everything, responding to everything properly. Yeah, I've mentioned the subheadings to frame the answers and to keep you on track with your content. So this one's slightly easier if this was an apprentice one for the professional services. So you've only got 4 points. So you've got a little bit more word count that you can apply to each one here. So, if you say allow 100 words for an introduction, 100 words for a conclusion, and then you've got your 200 words per section for here, that will make sure that you're on track with everything as well. And it'll give you the kind of scope to see, okay, we don't need as many words on that section there. We can add a bit more in here. If you're struggling and thinking you're running out of word count, but you've got quite a few testimonials, then turn those into images and put them into the supporting material, because that will just really trying to shorten them down as much as you can. Okay, so some of them, less is more. So this is as I say, explain things as fully as possible, but also less is more. So don't go overloading with comma after comma after comma for description and adjectives and things. That's just try to be really, really close to the point. If you want to put in case studies and testimonials, yeah, that's fantastic and gives a really good chance for the judges to really see a real life example of how that apprentice really changed or worked with a particular client that they hadn't, that had been a challenging client before, perhaps, or that you as an employer, this is what you did in order to support your group of apprentices going forward. So you can kind of frame that as a case study as well. You can sort of lift that off the page a little bit by putting kind of case study, colon, and then a little description, and then giving that as a round view there, because then that brings it to light as to what it is and why it's situated in there, as an example. Try to avoid your jargon, your acronyms and all that sort of thing. Don't be too familiar or conversational, but then don't be overly professional with it either. We want to hear your voice coming through in this. And yes, you need to have that professional voice. It is a marketing strategy, doing the award writing, and you want to present your business as a professional business. But, you know, don't be confusing to the judges. So try to just explain things fully in more layman's terms, especially if you're doing more technical stuff. Be professional, be passionate, and look at your punctuation as well. I am a bit of a grammar police, I have to say, but I'm not perfect. But, you know, it is important to make sure that you do those tiny little edits, and that's where the proofreading time will be really valuable. Be really honest, and it sounds like, you know, you shouldn't even need to say this, but, you know, being honest and truthful, because the judges will do their due diligence on you and check out some of your claims and facts and figures. And if things seem a little bit too, you know, kind of out there, they will do a little bit of digging, and that's their due diligence to make sure that they are giving this award to the right business and the right individual. So, you know, always do that. You can be creative with some of the information that you're putting forward, as long as it's truthful. So if you've got, for instance, you know, kind of some pound note signs that maybe aren't as strong as percentage signs, then, you know, you put that best figure forward. You're not lying, you're just making sure that the judge is seeing the best version of your business at that time. Use bullet points. Now, this is a way, when I said earlier about being able to kind of really control your word count and the information that you're sharing, is if you've got several different ways that that apprentice is presenting their strength in their apprenticeship or in their role, then, you know, rather than doing sentences and sentences, you can say, you know, this is how they're presenting, da, 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 and then include the bullet points underneath there. It helps you to be really concise, control your word count, but say everything as fully as you want to as well. Then show the impact as well. So don't be afraid to, you know, this had a huge difference on our business, which resulted in turnover, which resulted in percentage time efficiency. You know, we want to understand kind of from that decision that that apprentice made, or from that decision that you made as an employer, looking after those apprentices in that way, what's the impact of that? What's that ripple effect look like? So if you can try to explain that as much as possible and evidence it, backing up with, you know, your facts, your figures, and reviews and testimonials and that kind of stuff, then it will all give lots of strength to the content. So when I said earlier about less is more, this is an example of how you could say the same thing, but in a much shorter way, and also keep control of the word count. We obviously want to make sure that our punctuation and grammar is in the right place, so that we don't eat grandpa for dinner, but we just go for dinner with grandpa. This is an example of how in a winning entry many few years ago now, but we wrote this, and this is how we used the bullet points, and we used some of the data and things in there to really bring this to life. So yeah, you can see there how we did it, how we constructed it. I think with the online system, you can still put your bullet points and things in, but be careful, because it might use that as it'll use it as a character. So you may decide not to use the bullet points in itself, but you may want to still put the listing in there. So we'll see how it works on the actual online system when you input. Then from a supporting material side of things, you know, it is going to be logo and branded up. That's what we want to see. The judges want to be able to see all of that and see clearly who it is that they've got in front of them. It really helps to bring it to life as well. You know, you can use clippings from your press releases, articles, other pictures that have awards that you've won, perhaps exhibition stands, that kind of thing that you've been at, pictures of those apprentices doing the job, but also doing other stuff, and, you know, kind of things that they've implemented and got involved with as well. So, you know, the images, the pictures of the teams, the graphs, the testimonials, all that kind of stuff can go in here, and it just helps to bring it to life a little bit. And again, it's that before and after. So it might be showing that apprentice, you know, just in their kind of normal I don't know, their school stuff or something like that, if they're just really early on in their careers. And then, you know, in behind the desk doing their job now, and how professional and how, you know, how much more grown up they look now. So, you know, it's just giving that understanding of who they are. This is an example of a business that's done incredibly well, from winning her first award with Mansfield Chad, which was very exciting. But she's gone on to do amazing things now, and she actually has Gonk World in Mansfield, which I'm yet to go and see. But this is an example of how we've just used some of the pictures, the testimonials, the clippings, and that kind of stuff. What we do for her now when we do any awards and stuff, it's even fuller now because there's so many other things in there. But yeah, like I say, it's not there for doing more words, it's there for that visual impact as well. So ultimately, from today, we want you to be working like this, really, really hard, making your award entries fantastic, and trying not to miss the boat for when the deadlines come up. Like I say, the next one's is the 21st of March, so there's a few weeks left, or 3 weeks, isn't it, today, to get those entries in for the first ones. But you know, the sooner you can get moving on this, the better, and then you can be fine-tuning and tweaking the things, because if you've got the July deadline, then you don't want to be putting it in too soon, because you might have still more evidence and things that you want to put in, or new projects that you want to include in there to reference. But be mindful of doing that preparation time now, making sure that you've got that foundation in place to make sure that you can, you know, when you do go to write it, you've got all the tools there that you need. So as I mentioned before, we do have the check and send service. So if anybody does want to access that, it's an online portal, and we can send it out with the takeaway slides and things as well. Or if you feel, actually, I don't have 12 hours in my diary to write all of this and do all of this work, then please, you know, we'd be more than happy to work with you and give you some assistance on pulling your award entry together. I don't get involved with any of judging, so there is never a conflict of interest there. But please do connect and follow with both myself and Jenna. We're on Facebook,